Alright guys, today is another technique video. And this one is one I almost hesitate to share with people because it is so effective according to some. Um, and it is known as the Parker Brothers defense. Let's get into it.
Mr. Anderson.
So this defensive technique was originally developed for use in classic board games like Monopoly or Risk, that sort of thing. So that's why it's known as the Parker Brothers defense. But it is effective, or as effective, when used, in any other situation. So, for example, it still works with, in cards or chess or even debate. And as I say, this is primarily a defensive technique. And the way it works is as follows. Here, I'll show you firstly with respect to Monopoly. So what happens is that you get into a situation where you find you are decidedly losing, and then you do the following. Similarly, when it comes to Risk, for example, the following might look pretty grim. As you can see, the Red Army is nearly ready to take my last stronghold. But if you know what you're doing, you can effectively perform the Parker Brothers maneuver. And the game is a draw. Equally, if you're playing cards and you find you don't think that you can win, it looks a little bit different, but you would do it like this. And of course, in the context of a debate, it takes this form.
Entail, like, what am I allowed to do
Goodbye. Mute his dumbass. Yeah, you see, this guy is a very well practiced, well habituated deceiver.
Now, of course, I mean, in a lot of circles, this kind of tactic would really just be seen as a pretty cowardly thing to do, and basically, like, it's basically a forfeit when you just ruin the game and stop playing, take your ball and go home. To a lot of people that means you lose, but apparently to some people, this is a tactic that means that you can never lose a debate or any other game for that matter. So, if you guys subscribe to that school of thought, then I guess this is a tool that you can always keep to hand. Now, this was going to be the end of that video, but then a hero emerged. A man by the name of PMars. Now, PMars is another one of Darth Dawkins' sort of principal lieutenants, along with this guy, Barthology, who was kind of the main feature in my taking down Darth Dawkins' lieutenants video. And PMars was in that too. And you may recall that at some point in that video, PMars said this.
Because you can't tell me that none of you have ever had doubt about the existence of God.
Sure we have doubt.
Yeah, but if you have doubt, then that God cannot be revelatory. Because if you have doubt, he did not write that truth on your heart, because if he did, you would know it.
You're just guilty about your sin.
I can objectively prove Christianity is true.
Yeah, and you're just guilty about the sin that you commit.
Well, here's the thing about that. The reason that
we use a transcendental proof, where you say,
right. Well, I mean, look, we can try and change the subject, but I want you guys to understand me.
So subsequent to that conversation, I caught up with PMars, and I gave him the opportunity to show me that transcendental proof, using what he calls the transcendental argument for God, or TAG. And this is how that went. You were gonna prove God through TAG, I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just start off by kind of getting our precepts out of the way. So, like, do you want to grant each other some precepts, or do you want to try and prove everything? Like, do you want to just grant each
Uh,
other like the uniformity of nature, the reliability of the senses, like that kind of
no,
stuff? Or,
I wouldn't grant anything. I think
okay,
the debate
okay. So you
revolves
want to start
around.
from scratch? Okay, go ahead.
I think the debate revolves around how we evaluate and interpret evidence, and we evaluate and interpret evidence at all through a framework, a paradigm, a model of reality, or a worldview is what they're called. And
Sure.
so,
Okay, so start from scratch then. So first thing you need to do before you do anything else is you're going to need to establish probably the reliability of your senses, I would think, the external reality. So go ahead and establish that for me then.
oh yeah, we would establish that through Scripture,
Okay,
or the Bible
go ahead and
tells
do it.
us.
Do it. Go ahead.
You want like the Bible verse?
No, I want you to establish, like, I'm willing to grant, like, if I'm willing to grant you the reliability of your senses so that you can read that Bible verse if you want. But in return, the price of that is that you have to grant me the reliability of my senses too. Now, if you don't want to do that, I'm fine with that, but then you're going to have to establish the reliability of your senses on your own.
You wouldn't have to grant me. Yeah, I don't need you to grant me anything because I
Okay.
can justify the reliability of my senses. Because
Okay,
I get
go
my
for it.
metaphysical
Go
from
for it.
Scripture. I get my metaphysical principles.
You can't read scripture. You don't have the reliability of your senses.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't. I didn't grant them to you and you haven't established them yet.
So what?
So you can't read scripture because you don't know whether or not your senses are telling you the truth.
Yeah, that doesn't follow.
Well, yeah, it does,
Re-
because if your eyes aren't telling you the truth, then they can't read scripture, which means that you can't know that the scripture says anything. You don't know whether the scripture is true because you don't know whether
That
your
doesn't
eyes are
follow.
telling you the truth.
No,
Well,
no.
yeah, because you haven't established that yet. But go ahead and establish it, and then you can do that. But you can't use scripture because it's sense data.
It doesn't matter. I can
What
use sense
matters?
data.
You can't use sense data until you establish the reliability of sense data. Or I
No,
can
that's
grant it to you. Do you want it? You can have it. You can have it. I'll hand it to you. But if I give it to you, I get it too. That's the way it works. Otherwise, establish it.
not. So, in the Christian worldview, God made
Okay.
man in His image,
Don't care. Establish the reliability of
and
your senses
therefore,
first.
all right, just fuck off.
Why? Oh, man. Yeah, then he editorializes and says that yes, he can justify his senses, but I'm not going to show you that. And why? Because he muted me, so I'm muting him, and I'm petty like that. Screw you, buddy. And now he's going to start, like, speed running the loss of debates. So watch this. These are just going to get faster and faster.
I was just going to say, if you can prove the reliability of your senses with a test that would require reliability of your senses.
No, that would be circular. We prove the reliability of our senses through Scripture.
So I couldn't, like, get 50 dry towels and 50 wet towels, close my eyes and tell them apart to prove that my senses work.
Look, man without God's revelation cannot justify the belief that there is sufficient correspondence between the way the world appears to him and the way the world really is.
Is a physical object the same thing as a truth?
No.
Okay, so the world is made of physical objects, not truths. So a truth would be what a human subjectively thinks about the physical, empirical, objective
But
world.
you're not going to be able to tell the difference between physical objects and internal objects or mental objects.
External objects like an organ, like a physical
No,
organ.
mental objects or physical objects. Be able to delineate the two. We can't justify our belief in the external world because you can't make a distinction between our internal world of thought and the external world.
Well, that's okay for you, right? Like
No,
you can't. You can't
I
dictate
I
how
I
everybody.
justify my belief in the external world because I'm a Christian. But if you're
Yeah, but
at Christianity, then you can't even justify your belief in the external world.
according to you, right? Like these, you're not
According
telling
to
me,
me.
right? Like you're not giving empirical facts. You're giving your personal opinions.
I'm not giving my personal opinion. Willard Van Orman Quine, who was an atheist and a philosopher, he's going to say that there's no difference between physical objects and fairy tales in terms of epistemic justification. And the only reason he believes in physical objects and not fairy tales is because they're practical value.
Okay, so you're going to give me somebody else's thoughts.
Yeah, and he's not a Christian. I'm showing you this isn't just my opinion because I'm a Christian. This is what
Well,
philosophers.
it's your opinion. It's your opinion and his opinion. So two people's opinion. Yeah.
No, this is
Yes,
philosophically
his
proven.
opinion and your opinion.
He muted that guy. I'm sorry for laughing at you, PMars. I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but like, you know, number one, it was genuinely funny to me that you muted me and you went on to this next person. The very next person you talked to, you muted that person too. And it doesn't. You can see it doesn't play well. Like it doesn't. You don't come off as the tough guy that you think you are, and I think that was the humor in it for me. I mean, I'm not. I don't mean to laugh at you because you're having a tough go. It's this other behavior that I'm pointing out in this video that they got my chuckle.
You can't get. The point is, without God, you have no independent way to evaluate and interpret reality. So you can't escape your opinion. All of your proof or evidence is going to be subjective, and thus victim, and thus subject to skepticism.
So speaking directly to PMars and to all of the like science affirming rational Christians out there, like I'm not against Christianity. I think I have respect for your beliefs. I'm not saying that you're stupid. And PMars, like I appreciate that you were willing to engage with me, and I hope that we can have respectful conversations again. But like what I'm pointing out here are debate tactics, right? Like this is not about the substance of the conversation at this point because I'm not even in it, right? This is about the technique that you're using, and like I'm just telling you, this is bad technique. This does not work. It does not play well, in my opinion. I mean, as I say, and I say this tongue in cheek, some people think that, this is an unbeatable move and you're never going to lose a debate. But I mean, I'm not one of them. And, PMars, look, contact me privately if you like, and, we can talk about your argument and how to, like, make it more robust so that you don't run into this problem again. Because, like, I mean, I've done this thing that I did to you earlier, like, again, I think, like, twice more. You run into the same problem every time. And you don't need to. So, look, I just want to say, like, I respect Christianity. I respect people of faith. I'm not saying that you guys are irrational. I'm just saying this is not a good tactic.
To you. That's your opinion.
No.
See if he mutes this guy. Yes.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Who's saying this?
Now, that guy at that point started hurling insults and saying things that were inappropriate. And so he was muted. He was muted appropriately in that situation. So I'm not counting that towards his mute count. And I'm not showing it either because the guy was just being a jerk.
Said that you can't like appeal to the validity of logic if you don't have something below it to appeal from. It's kind of true.
You would justify it with circular reasoning.
But ultimately, PMars just bottoms out axioms, just like you, but his axioms include God.
I don't have axioms. God is not an axiom.
Is he not unconditionally true?
Unconditionally? No. Well, no, he would be justified. An axiom means it's true for no reason. But there's a reason God is true.
So God can, like, hold on. Either God is unconditionally true, or there are some circumstances where he's not true.
That's not what an axiom is.
I mean, you can say that, but it sounds like you really think that God is unconditionally true.
What do you mean? Well, he'd be true by his. He'd be like
By his own nature, his very nature.
Yeah. He's not an axiom.
I mean, he is unconditionally true. Like, it just feels like.
So
It
what?
looks like a cat. It smells like a cat. Tastes like a cat. It sounds like a cat.
Not an axiom. We don't believe in axioms.
I mean, you don't have to use that word, but
It's
at the
not
end of the day.
Okay. It's fucking. I don't know why these people just come here and just lie to me.
Who's lying to you?
Ride fee.
Oh my god, this guy.
I didn't hear any lies. I don't know what you're talking about.
She was saying that God is an axiom, but we don't think that God is an axiom in our system. God's not an axiom.
It's the way you're presenting it. It definitely seems like an axiom.
Well, it's not.
Okay, cool. Well, it's not. You're just going nah.
No.
You just did it. You just did it again. No.
I think he's Googling something now.
Okay, so an axiom is a self-evident truth that serves as a starting point for reasoning within a given system. It's foundational and assumed without proof within a system. In the context of logic and mathematics, axioms are the basic propositions from which all other truths are derived. Okay?
Right.
Yeah, that sounds like your God claim.
It's not. We hold that God is the ultimate foundation for truth and knowledge.
Stop right there. Okay, so
good goddamn.
Stop interrupting me.
No, but hang on. You said exactly what the first definition of an.
If you interrupt me, he's gonna mute you.
Stop interrupting me. So we hold that God is the ultimate foundation for all truth and knowledge. In presuppositional apologetics, God is not merely an assumption within a system, but the necessary precondition for the intelligibility of any system. In other words, God's existence is the basis for the possibility of logic, reasoning, and knowledge itself. To claim that God is an axiom would be to place him on the same level as other axioms, which are merely starting points within a system.
Yes, that's right.
God's existence is what makes the concept of axioms and logical systems possible in the first place.
Well,
Without
says
God,
you.
there would be no basis for the laws of logic, the uniformity of nature, or moral absolutes.
He's reading
Only the
something
Christian
again.
worldview, which presupposes the existence of the triune God, provides a coherent foundation for knowledge. By saying God is not an axiom, we're emphasizing that God is not just a component of a logical system, but the very foundation upon which all logical systems rest. So God is not taken as an axiom because axioms are assumptions within a system, whereas God is the necessary precondition for the possibility of any coherent system of thought. God's existence undergirds the intelligibility of all axioms, logical principles, and knowledge claims. Not an axiom.
I'm sorry, but you have no opinion. Why do you think you can speak for God?
It's because I have been studying something called the transcendental argument for God. And we, as Christians, are revealed knowledge of God, and we use this knowledge to reason and formulate arguments.
How are you gonna have an argument when you mute everybody?
You may claim that, but again, I don't think you can speak for a higher being.
Yeah, based
You
on
have
what?
no claim. You have no authority. And I
What
think
authority do you have to say that I can't speak about God?
I have a heavy authority to say you have none whatsoever. Like,
fuck off. I have a magic authority that says you don't have authority. And authority. Look, either the mind of God is going
This
to
is
be
the
the
worst
authority,
debater I've
which
ever heard
rationalizes
in
the
my
facts
life.
first, or it's the mind of man which rationalizes the facts first. If you make the mind of man that which first rationalizes the facts, you can't have a coherent system, or you can't have a coherent theory of knowledge. It'll end in ruin.
Still did a better job than JCC.
Jeff, why do you come here? I literally don't understand.
He muted that guy as soon as he came in the room.
So this is what I mean, guys. Like, do you really think that doing that, like, projects strength and power and ability? Because it seems awfully juvenile to me. It seems like you're running, and this guy just, like, yeah, he just ran from like 6 people in a row, 7 really, but one of them I don't count because there was one guy he muted appropriately. But that was within the space of, like, I didn't cut very much from that. There was a bunch of drivel at the beginning that I cut out, but, like, yeah, this guy just, like I said, it was speed running his defeats, and just, yeah, just mute, you lose, mute, you lose, mute, you lose. So, like, you know what? In the future, my friends, if you want to mute me, like, go for it. I could really not care very much less than I already do. See you next time.